All right, everyone. Welcome to the OnCommand Insight Report Import and Export session. Today we're going to be looking at Cognos 11, specifically the newest version in OnCommand Insight 738. We'll also be mentioning a few of the differences that exist on some of the older versions of Cognos that exist in versions prior to OnCommand 738. But we're going to be going into how to import in individual reports, export individual reports, and also do a bulk import and export of reports. And so let's go ahead and get started. So let's open up the server here. So when you open up the newest version of Cognos, this is something similar to what you're going to be able to see. Let's go ahead and open up a new report here, and let's load in our first report. Quick mention here is instead of just creating a new report, you can also go to Team Content, open up one of these folders, and then also click on More and edit the report to get to the same screen. And that's the same steps, I guess, for the older versions as well. So let's do new report. I think we already have that open. So let's go there. So you're going to see this screen when you first open up a new report, and this is going to be the edit screen. So on the top right here, you're going to notice this More button and the open report from clipboard and the copy report from clipboard. And you're also going to see the validate report option here. So pretty much everything exists under this More icon. And so let's just close this real quick and run over to my other VM. And so this is what the older version of the Cognos 11 looks like. So when you first open up a new report, this is what you're going to see. The only thing you need to remember is on the left side here, you're going to want to click on either the pages icon or the queries icon, and you're going to see this report word and this icon here. You can right click, and that's where you're going to see the open report from clipboard and copy report from clipboard. And so that's the primary difference there. The bulk import and export steps are going to be exactly the same regardless of the version. So let's go ahead and go back to the 738 version, and let's go ahead and load in our first report. So open report from clipboard, and let's grab this report here. Let me close this. The one thing I should mention is you can also go to our automation store to download reports that are in our catalog. And once you download them, you will be getting, like a text document or XML file that will look exactly like what I'm looking at here. And so once you get that file, you can copy it and then go back over to Cognos 11 and paste it in, and then click OK. And once you do that, you should see the report load in here, and you should see a box pop up briefly. Sometimes you don't see it because of how fast it validates, but it should be a validation box that's saying that it's running. Once it's loaded in, you should see it's either updated or it validated successfully, and then you click OK. And so very simple. It's going to be the same on the older versions, just different location of where to activate that text box. So fairly simple. I do want to go through a few of the issues that you might run into. So I do know that there are instances where someone might send you a report and they might have a different Cognos version than you do. And so let's go ahead and see how you can get around that issue. And usually if it's an older version, you're not going to have a problem. If it's a newer one, you may have a problem. So you're going to see up here at the top, the very top row, you're going to see this line right here. The thing that we want to pay attention to is this number right here. It's going to be 3 characters, so in this case 15.1, but in some of the older versions you might see 12.0, 14.2, 14.3. But let's say in the future there's a newer version of Cognos and it might say 15.3. If that's the case, let's see what error we're going to get. So if we click on new report, blank report, let's open up the report again. We paste it and click OK. We immediately see that version is not supported, expected report version 15.1. And so what I would do at that point is just open up that report XML or text document, go up to the top and just change it to the expected version, copy it, and try to open it again. And you should be able to get around the issue. You can also set that number to something other than 15.1. You could probably put 12.0, 14.2, 14.3, and those should all work as well. I typically just go with what the expected version was. So just keep that in mind. I mean, that's something you'll probably see quite often if you're doing a lot of report work and having people send you, reports. And so that's an easy fix. And so that might be preferable than waiting for someone else to fix it. So let's go ahead and move on to another issue that you might see. So typically, instead of that expected version error, you might see something a little bit different with a lot more text and, a lot more going on. So let's open this one up and we should see an error that I put into this report. And so if it doesn't validate automatically, once again, you click on that More button, click on Validate Report. And once it opens here, you're going to see that there's going to be a lot of errors in here. What I recommend is click on Copy All button, and you're going to see all of the errors that you're seeing in the report. And then go ahead and open up a new text document and then just paste in the errors that you saw. And then if you scroll up to the very top, you always want to pay attention to the top error first, fix that error, and then revalidate, and then see what other errors exist, because these are all going to be like red herring errors. None of these are going to matter down here. And so just fix this one first and then see what remains. And so you're going to notice here on the third line, that's where you actually get some details. And so you're seeing that there's a query object that contains a specific object that does not exist. And so what that means is that there's a query object that also has a SQL object assigned, and something between that SQL and the query is not gelling together correctly. And so if we go back over to the report, let's go ahead and look for that error. So if you click on Report and then Queries, let's go ahead and take a look. And so if you click on the SQL item, you're going to see here, SQL 5. And so that could be a good candidate for where the error exists. And so if you click on that query and dive into the data items that exist, like these data items, if it's based on a SQL query, are basically going to be what the select statement objects are. And so if you look down through here, you're going to see, usable changes, that's where the error was. And so let's take a look. We'll click on it. You're going to see usable changes, no spaces. And so that's what's being pulled from the select statement of that query. And so that's where we're going to want to look. So let's go back over to the actual query list here, and let's open up the SQL. So you just double click on the SQL item. You can expand this a little bit. And so now all we're going to want to do is go through the select statement and find the usable changes. And you're going to notice here that there are no spaces. Or, there is a space, and unlike the data item where there were no spaces. And so that means someone might have opened up the SQL and made some changes here or something like that. And so you have two options. You can either, remove the space there to make it match what the data item sees, or we'll just leave it the same. We don't want to mess with it. And so we'll just come back over here, usable changes, and then add in a space, click OK. And then if you come back up to the More icon and then click on Validate Report, let's see what happened. And you're going to see it validated, and now it's successful. And so you're going to notice here from all these errors, there's a bunch of these different errors. None of these even mattered. All it really cared about was this one issue. And so, like I said, go through, fix the top issue first, see if there's anything else, and then just keep doing that over and over until you fix the report. I mean, you may not need to do this very often, but it's good to know at least some basic troubleshooting steps. Something else I would mention is this code right here. Sometimes you might not get something as clear as this. It might be something very vague. If you do a Google search for that specific error code, a lot of times you're going to find an IBM KB article that will point you in the right direction. And even if you do need to engage support or whatever, it might be good just to mention, what you found and point them in the right direction even. So just thought I would mention that, and let's go ahead and move on. And so like I mentioned before, under the More button, you can also copy the report to clipboard. Depending on the version of Cognos or possibly even what browser you're using, you might see a pop-up where you have to manually copy out the details you need. Or on this version, if you just do copy to clipboard, it's just going to open up or it's just going to automatically put the XML data in your clipboard, and then you just paste it, and then you're able to save it wherever you want. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. So that was pretty much the process for individually loading in single reports or copying out single individual reports. So let's go ahead and move on to the bulk import and export. And so if you click on manage here, it's going to be on the same for any of the versions of Cognos above 733, and you click on administration console. Let's go over to configuration and content administration. You then click on new export, which is the third icon from the left. And let's just type in 12.3 test reports. Next. And you just want to keep it with select public folders, directory, and library content. Click next. And then what you're going to want to do is click on add on the right side of the screen. Click on team content. And that does remind me, when we go back over to our home page here, we have the team content and my content. With this bulk export method, you're only allowed to copy out or copy into the export folders that exist in the team content. And so if you do happen to have reports under my content or folders, you're going to want to copy those over here into a new folder or wherever you want to put them, just to make sure that they're available for export. And so when you go over here, you're going to notice that you see all of your folders that were in team content. These are all available here. If you happen to have a ton of different folders, you can also expand this out. Let's say there's 50, click the plus sign. And if there were 50, it would go up to that number. Just make sure that you're aware of that. Otherwise, you might not grab all the folders that you are expecting. So in this case, let's just do reports folder and click next, or click the arrow here to move it over here to the selected entries. And let's just click OK. So here you can see what folder we have selected, and the target name is going to be what that folder shows up as if we happen to copy that back in. So if we click next, we usually don't have to select anything under the directory content. Access permissions usually don't have to touch. And here it's just going to show us the name of the archive. Let's click next. Once again, it's going to just show us all the options that we have selected. Usually we just save and run once. Just do it immediately, run. If you want to see the details, you can do the view details. Usually it runs so fast that it doesn't really matter. So just go ahead and click OK. You're going to see that it's already out there. And so that's going to be how you create a new report export. Where that's located, if we go back over here to our SandScreen directory, this is going to be on your data warehouse server. You then click on Cognos, Analytics, and then Deployment, and you're then going to be able to see the 12.3 test reports, which is what we've created. And so what you're going to want to do is, you can send this to someone else. They can load that in and be able to work on those reports and then send one back. You might also want to do this for an upgrade or when you're moving to a new box. I mean, there's a variety of reasons, but typically you're going to want to save these elsewhere and just have them available for use in those instances. I would mention with the upgrades and moving to another box, when you do a data warehouse backup, it should contain the reports. And so that shouldn't be a problem, but it's always best practice to make sure you have those saved separately just in case there are any issues. Otherwise, you might lose some reports. And so let's say that there is an instance where somebody sends you a report archive and you need to load that into your box just so you don't have to load in 20 reports individually. You just paste that archive into this deployment folder and then come back over here to the administration console, go to configuration, content administration, and then instead of export, you're going to click on new import. And so we're going to do the 12.3 test reports. And we'll just click next. And so what you're going to need to do this time is you actually want to select the folder that you want to import in. And then the target name you may want to change. And we will, since we know that there's already another reports folder. So we're just going to call it reports 3 because I think I already have them named 2. And let's just click next. We're not going to change the ownership. This is just the summary. Save and run once. Since we already have, typically you won't have this problem, but since I had something named the same, we'll just put a 3 there. Click OK. Usually you just want to run it now. Click OK. And so you should see, the new archive show up there. And then let's go check over here. Let's close this and open it. You're going to see that new reports 3 folder show up. And it should have the same number of reports as the original reports folder. And so that's pretty much it. You can individually load in the reports from the edit page, export them from there, or do the bulk import and export from the IBM Cognos administration page. Fairly simple, but definitely something that's pretty important to know depending on the situation.